Yo, what is up everyone? Back here with another video. Today we're going to be talking about why I think Cresselia is not actually that good. That might be a big surprise to you guys. I don't think it's bad. I'm going to preface it with that. So, pretty much the way I feel about it is good on certain compositions, but it is not near as splashable nor good as we thought it was, right? And I kind of want to explain that thought process to you guys because I feel like a lot of people can misconstrue it as Cresselia being bad. I just don't think it's necessarily being used properly, and I think it was overhyped at the beginning of the format. Basically, the issue that Cress has is that Cress is super susceptible to being destroyed by Scissor, pretty much, right? It's able to be taunted, it's able to be snarled down, it's unable to do too much in certain situations, right? So I'm gonna be talking to you guys about why I think it isn't that great right now in the metagame and what it can possibly use as to improve it. Now, it is very different from Battle Tower. I will preface it with that. In Battle Tower, I think it's actually way stronger than it is in normal VGC. The main reason why I think it's stronger in Battle Tower is because your opponents aren't using basically VGC meta Pokemon, right? Like, yes, they're using certain double strategies, which makes sense, right? But they aren't using full on VGC meta teams. You know what I mean? So like they're not all going to be running Scissor, and they're not all going to know how to use Scissor versus you, right? Whereas in a actual PvP match, you're pretty much saying, okay, my opponent knows what they're doing. They probably have an answer for Cresselia because everyone knows you need an answer for Cresselia. So I just want to clarify that difference early. If you're using Battle Tower, this video is pretty much a little more centered around VGC because I think it's actually pretty decent Battle Tower. If you guys are wondering in Battle Tower what is good or like what's the best set for it, pretty much I would be utilizing the Calm Mind set on it in Battle Tower. I think that's the best set you can use. So we're going to go over to Cresselia here. Cresselia is a very interesting case for me. You'll see that the most common moves on Cresselia are Psychic, Ice Beam, Trick Room, and Calm Mind. Now, you'll see it's kind of varied in with like Moonlight, Skill Swapper S, Swagger, Thunder Wave, and like so on with support moves. Now, the main thing to consider when it comes to Cresselia is that Cresselia has constantly been used within this niche and hasn't really been explored beyond that. So it's kind of limited right now in terms of what it's being utilized. I think if it explores itself beyond the niche that it's already provided, it could actually do a lot more in the format. Now, I'm going to talk about why I think Cresselia isn't so great. So let's look at the Victory Road top 8. I know I reference this a lot. It's really important because it's the only tournament we really have the reference at the moment, besides like obviously a couple of like battles online, I guess. But pretty much, Scizor is super. My voice just cracked so bad there. Scizor is super dominant. It's basically able to set up Sword Dance. It's able to run through teams if you're not prepared for it. It's able to put on a bunch of pressure. And the issue with that is that Cresselia provides one more weakness to that. Now, if you don't know, a lot of popular Pokemon in the format already carry some kind of weakness to Scizor, so they're trying to avoid doubling up on it, right? And it takes a very specific kind of team for Cresselia to add a lot to it. Specifically, it's been useful next to Heatran compositions in most cases, but even then, it's still a little bit questionable, right? It kind of depends. Now, the nice thing I'd say about Cresselia is that you get a bulky Trick Room setter that pretty much doesn't die in one hit, but it can sit there, right? So that's what you need to avoid. But if we go through usage, right, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Scizor in Top Cut. Now, I don't need to explain to you why that's an issue for Cresselia because Cresselia can't touch Scizor, right? Now, obviously Cresselia has partners, but realistically the partners that would deal with Scizor still don't always deal with the other things that basically cover Cresselia. So for example, let's say you have a fire type. Well, these Scizor teams typically run Rain or they run Tyranitar. Now you have two things that your team is weak to. So let's say you have Cresselia, you have Arcanine, and you have like basically any filler, right? Something that can work with it, right? Even in that case, there's always going to be something Scizor is paired with that can pressure you, right? And obviously that's any kind of Pokemon team. But when multiple Pokemon are popular in a metagame that deal with another certain Pokemon, it makes it very difficult for it to succeed. So the reason why Latios as a Psychic type does better than Cresselia is because it's not limited the same way Cresselia is. Yes, it runs Psychic and Ice Beam coverage, but it also has important Draco Meteor coverage, which lets it hit other things that makes it even more valuable, and its speed tier and special attack set are much higher. Even though it doesn't have the same bulk that Cresselia has, it's able to put on a lot more pressure versus opposing teams. And that kind of brings me to my next problem with Cresselia that it encounters. Cresselia is a little bit slow to get going. You utilize it for Trick Room, then okay, you kind of got your use out of it. But the Calm Mind set spends so long setting up for such little damage output in return that you're not really gaining as much if you had a more offensive slot on your team. And that's why Cresselia is so lacking, because you're spending so much time investing into this Pokemon setting up while your opponent's able to get a bunch of free damage on you or potentially do something else that really puts pressure on your team, right? Forces you to take damage on other slots, forces you to consistently pivot. And that's the main reason why I think Cresselia is struggling right now, because it's not never really put in a position where it's able to immediately exert that pressure. It has to be something that is slowly built up, and if there's anything like Snarl to ruin your setup, or if there's a Scizor on the field or a Tyranitar on the field, you're pretty much useless. And that's the main issue there. Not only to mention that the other relevant steel type, Heatran, also gives it problems, on top of the fact that if it's being redirected, it can typically be spammed down with damage really easily. Um, those are just a couple of the reasons why it's so troubling, I think, and why it can really be an issue. Now, the one thing I will say is when we go to this kind of team chart, right? The one thing we can notice is that Cresselia is number 5, so it's not actually that bad on usage, right? Like, realistically. Now, the one thing of note from the one Cresselia I played that was actually really solid was a Cresselia that was using a 3 attack set, and this was used by Bars. Bars is a really good player. I actually did a team report with him a while back on this channel in Series 7, and it was a pretty cool team, but like, anyways, going back to this, like, Cresselia was running Energy Ball so it could pressure Gastrodon. Now, this gives it a little extra utility because not only can it pressure Gastrodon, but it can pressure water types, right? Now, being able to pressure water types and even being able to hit a Tyranitar for a little bit of damage super effective makes it a little bit more viable than it otherwise would be, right? Basically giving it a little more utility beyond the fact of it's just sitting there and trying to set up. Now, this is really helpful because running a Cresselia like this can actually allow it to basically avoid that problem of being able, like, sitting there and setting, like, or sitting there and not being able to do damage, but also still allowing it to do it once. Now, I think this Cresselia also had Expert Belt on it. I'm not 100% sure, which let it do even more damage. So I think more offensive Cresselia builds or Cresselia builds that are meant to be annoying, regardless of whether or not you have the Calm Mind setup, so like not relying on the Calm Mind setup, are going to be the best sets as we continue in this format. I definitely expect to see Cresselia continue to be good. I just think it isn't being utilized the right way at the moment, right? That being said, I do think that Scizor and Tyranitar do give it issues along with Snarl spam, so whatever team is utilizing Cresselia is probably going to need a way to deal with that. And that's something that we'll probably see pop up more often. Now, when it comes to the other things related to the metagame in Cresselia, if we look at the actual usage stat for it, the one thing that we see paired a lot with it, right, are pretty much Pokemon that you would expect to kind of take advantage of Trick Room, or that it can basically levitate next to when they click Earthquake. So you'll see typically the common choices are Garchomp, you'll see Heatran, which you can skill swap Levitate onto, you'll see Rotom Wash, right? Pretty much both immune to ground. You'll have Hariyama with Fake Out, so it can go for Trick Rooms. And kind of those compositions. And you'll kind of see they all fit within the same idea. The one thing that I would say to keep an eye out for when it comes to Cresselia is Cresselia paired with slow Trickermon, like something like Hariyama, and like, but it has like variation to it. So basically it can run like 2 different modes, right? Because Cresselia is that one of those Pokemon that has like the perfect speed tier to run both a fast or like kind of a mid-speed set, right? Like 105 is pretty decent, especially if you have like Thunder Wave on your Cresselia. You can't run Icy Wind in this format, unfortunately, where you'll still be underspeeding things if they're not Thunder Waved and you're in Trick Room, but if you do Thunder Wave them, you'll be outspeeding them, right? So it's really nice, and it's something that Cresselia has a lot of potential to do. And if we looked at how Cresselia has been used historically, the Calm Mind set wasn't ever really used. It was mostly just like a like Psychic, Ice Beam, Trick Room, Protect spam, right? Or like some support move spam. So that's something that I would expect to occur a lot more as the format progresses. But yeah, that's pretty much talking about Cresselia and why I think it's not the best in the format, but where I think its potential could lie. Cresselia is still a really bulky mon. It has really good stats. Its typing is okay. And its coverage is not bad. I just think that it needs a little bit of love and it needs a little bit of innovation to bring it to where it needs to be. And that's why I think it's not so good in the VGC format right now. However, obviously it does have some potential. And I would hope that it will have its potential realized before the format kind of reaches its close. and we're really able to see, you know, some team with it do really well, because I do think it can do really well. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Guys, thank you again for all the support on the videos, as always. Make sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments. Which Pokemon you think maybe aren't that good, or what Pokemon you think would work well next to Cresselia. Also, too, thank you to all the patrons who support me on Patreon. You guys are the reason I am able to do the content that I am doing, along with all the people who watch, comment, like, and subscribe on these videos. I incredibly appreciate it. And if you guys are interested in seeing more content from me, make sure to check out Twitch. And if you guys are making sure to keep up with updates, kind of know when I release videos and stuff, make sure to check out my Twitter. Once again, guys, thank you for all the support, and I will see you guys on the next video. Peace.